On a visual level, Dev D is a mind-blowing experiment in Bollywood. The idea of infusing an underworld musical experience onto a story set in 1917 seems like an almost impossible task to achieve. The film starts with a very mundane setting and after taking its time with the characters, plunges into the urban nightlife of Delhi, introducing a darker world armed with a more psychological eye. This shift is carried purely by director Anurag Kashyap's aesthetic intervention. He begins on a realistic note set by Chattopadhyay's novel, something that we explored in terms of writing in our previous video, and later decides to inject a world similar to the frames of Trainspotting by Danny Boyle, a world full of heavy drugs and jarring sexual undertones. The use of an Ariflex 35BL4S as a primary camera by DOP Rajiv Ravi comes from a series that was used to film Taxi Driver, The Shining, as well as Trainspotting, and the choice seems especially suitable to encapsulate the range of lighting styles this one film carries. This range allows Dev D a layered contrast between the world of neon lights and another world of the mundane, and it is interesting to see how towards the latter half, the former is full of chaotic camera movements that place its protagonist at its center, whereas the latter is marked with static shots that observe our drowsy character, as if the drug-induced nightlife is the cause and the bizarre day life is the effect of the drugs, an environment that has lost its order and can at any time turn against Dev. This makes our camera pathological. It is neurotic at times with fear and remorse in the protagonist, and psychotic at times with the same man in rage and lust. This pathological camera is the result of a devolution in the protagonist. Devdas devolves from a classically angry character into a chaotic volatile devil whose fate is unknown. In this video, I will take you from the very beginning of the film to the very end to explain how the camera evolves from telling a simple story of lust, romance and betrayal to becoming this highly psychological art house film by the end. Initially, Kashyap uses color to depict the repressed yet regular world of the characters. The mise-en-scène of the film immediately throws in an homage to Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge and Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Devdas, giving us the feeling that the film starts as just another Bollywood romance. There's a frequent use of yellow to keep the conflicting ideas of a pure yet lustful love within the frame. Kashyap uses the natural purple setting of a London evening to signify the cool, ambiguous space from which Dev comes. But upon his return, the red takes over the frame gradually as both a fiery desire and unfortunate tragedy besets the protagonist as a result of his own aggression. Additionally, it is interesting to see how the lensing in the chapter of the film evolves. Except the close-ups, initially the lenses used are natural and wide, placing our characters into the conventional setting they live in. The depth of field is usually large, and nothing is unknown in the frame. By introducing the close-ups of the grown-up characters, however, the individual subjects now enter the frame, as we catch a glimpse of their internal longing and desire for each other. In wides, the two seem like expressive animals, but in close-ups, their intimate feelings are revealed. This builds up to a very decisive moment in the film, where Paro confronts Dev for overlooking their situation. Ironically, the first scene where they are being actually framed having a real-life conversation. Here's where the cinematography of the film really shines. As the conversation bitters, we shift to a long lens, as the shots awkwardly crop out the other's face, showing exactly how incompatible the two egos are in one frame. This is a hilariously anticlimactic look to a highly anticipated Bollywood romance, and the filmmakers can now proceed to gradually break all the other rules, something we'll touch more deeply on when we get to the editing video of the series. It is interesting to see how in the first part of the film, the makers use multiple metaphors to denote Dev's contained aggression. The close-up on a tap that goes on running, the boiling of chai, and ultimately the blurry fires of a background of roasting pots indicates the progression of Dev's internal state into that of combustion. When the first part comes to an end, the result is a complete intoxication signaled by a shallow depth of field. Dev is now isolated from his environment so totally that he falls, almost like the ending of Devdas. But this ending transitions into a new beginning, a beginning of shaky cameras, discontinuous cuts, and feelings of rock bottom. By bringing the camera into the dark underbelly of Delhi, the filmmakers introduce more style into how the camera moves, and the center of the film shifts away from Dev to Chanda, a character who seems to be born out of the subjective long lenses and pits of intoxication. The cinematographic style of the Chanda chapter brings into fore the prominent archetype of the sacred prostitute. In visuals, the film jumps into the neon sexuality of city nightlife, but as a musical montage, it sounds innocent and in tune with nature. By using a tracking shot to underline Dev's arrival to Chanda's quarters, the film denotes another significant shift in the story that is going to change the lives of each character. And now the camera is going to return to Dev, becoming Dev D. The D possibly standing for the devil we will now witness in the next chapter. Now that we know that Dev is getting lost in his own world, the camera eye becomes the moving element in the story, assuming an intensity quite like the graffiti surrounding his room. A lot of tracking shots, often unsteady, fill the frame as we get to witness Dev roaming around the streets. It is almost as if the camera dances to the musical form around a protagonist who thinks he has hit the end of the road. By filming the popular Pardesi into a montage of intensely aggressive shots, it seems like the mind of Dev has finally been plied open. There also seem to be some static and handheld shots that come from a really faraway perspective, giving us the feeling that Dev is being observed from afar. This is what philosopher Gilles Deleuze calls the perception image, and in this case it unleashes the neurotic in Dev. But the doors close to the outside when it is hinted that Chanda's quarters are the only place in this world where the camera settles, signifying a space where Dev feels private and safe. This layer of visual irony for a prostitute's quarters somewhat baffles me, and can only be achieved when the filmmakers understand how the outside world and the mental state of the character are working together to tell a story. At the 1 hour 38.5 minute mark, we get to see a frame that has now been well marinated in terms of color. Behind Dev is a purple that reminds us of his London past. On him is a red that seems to embody his intoxication. And in front of him is Chanda, who is almost detached from these colors and comfortable in her own skin. Dev and Chanda together are seen as becoming kids again, starting to understand each other and have conversations therein. One can't help but notice the contrast between how he interacts with Chanda as against how he did with Paro. Dev and Chanda are now willing to confront each other and express what they feel instead of getting infatuated with each other. They find themselves in the nostalgia of a purple-blue atmosphere as they fall in love with each other, signaling a return to Dev's virgin innocence in the past. But it is not just the good, but also the bad elements of the past that are now at conflict with each other, signaled by how both the yellows and blues wash him over as he returns to self-sabotage. This time, when he hits rock bottom, the devil in him peaks as the shots and time lapses interlap each other. This builds up to Dev tragically running over people on the footpath. In the way that this accident is filmed, it is very much similar to the way the intimate scene was filmed in the middle of the fields with Paro. So perhaps this is not the first, but the second accident involving Dev in the film. What follows this is a disorienting morning where media attention overlaps with the awkwardly still frame, giving an almost post-nut clarity experience in this world, where Dev finally realizes that his actions carry consequences. He's no longer the center of the world he once thought he was. On this morning, he goes on a journey of several deja vus, where he finds himself in the past, realizing that Paro didn't actually exist in it as much as his ego wanted him to. Here, I reward the cinematography not just for what it includes, but also for what it excludes, for how it shows a man who is willing to change and undergo the tribulations of hitting the lowest point of his life. The final phase of the film builds up to the bittersweet irony of Chanda's eyes twinkling, bathed in the yellow lights that signified lust in the beginning of the story. And it seems like this irony triggers off a realization in Dev in an endearing two-shot of Chanda taking care of him. Perhaps what is so ambitious about the cinematography of Dev D is the sheer breadth of visual ideas it deals with. It is a miracle to see a story not getting crushed by the chaotic engines of Dev's new mind. But the filmmakers seem to trust their heart quite immensely to be able to play with different looks and styles within one story. So, what do you think about Dev D's cinematography? Let me know in the comment section. And if you want other breakdowns made by us on this film, check out the end screens that show up now.